We've reached quite a climax in the basketball world right now. The NBA trade deadline went from calm to intense in a matter of days, most notably with the swap of Luka Doncic and Anthony Davis. And the WNBA went crazy with some shocking moves of their own. And while in this episode I'll be focusing on the offseason moves from the W, keep your eyes on my separate YouTube channel to hear my thoughts on the NBA trade deadline with the video that I'll be dropping tomorrow. Okay, so you got the podcast today, trade deadline on my separate solo channel tomorrow. Okay, so lots of NBA talk coming on H2DG across platforms. But for today, in addition to the W discussion, I also want to take the time to show some love to a few NBA rooks who have seemed to turn a corner a little bit after getting increased opportunities to perform, and then end today's episode highlighting two NBA teams, okay, one from each conference, that have surprised some fans, but not me, shall I admit. So I definitely got a good one for you today. All right, get your popcorn ready. As always, getting ready for it all coming at you right now on H2DG. Welcome to Hip to the Games, the podcast for you, the basketball junkie and the hip hop head. I'm your host, Desmond, and I too have had hoop dreams and enjoy the beautiful genre of hip hop and its history. Together, we will enjoy some of the greatest albums, songs, artists, players, moments, teams, and so much more, while even mixing the two on occasion, all in my hope that you remember why you love both or either of these to begin with. You'll soon understand that Hip to the Games is more than just a podcast, it's a lifestyle. And if you were looking for a platform that combines both basketball and hip hop, you've come to the right place. Welcome to this episode of Hip to the Games. Shout out to you if you are a loyal listener and are showing that you are indeed hip to the games by listening or tuning in visually. Once again, I sincerely appreciate your support. You know, whether you're listening on your favorite platform or watching on YouTube, like I said, I'm very thankful for your support. And if you do happen to be new to H2DG, welcome. I am happy to have you here. All right. If throughout this episode that you like what you're hearing, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button on whatever platform you're listening to or watching on to stay tapped in with all things hip to the games. All right. And before we really get into today's episode, you already know the drill if you've been here before. I got to get my pregame shout outs out the way. Okay, the first one always goes to the creative director, Jesus Christ, for another H2DG episode, as it's always a blessing to get in front of this microphone and do what he's putting me to do. And the second one goes to my 19 Media Group family. Okay, you see that blue and white logo in the corner. Okay, it's always a blessing and a privilege to represent the home team. You know, that's my squad. You know, we got a great group of independent podcasters who are passionate about what they do with great shows of their own. You know, be sure to follow 19M Group on Twitter, 19 Media Group on YouTube, Instagram, you know, to follow everything going on with the network. Like I said, it's a lot going on. We got a variety of shows around sports, music, education, culture. I mean, we check all the boxes, you know, and I'm sure you can find another teammate of mine to support on this journey, you know, whether that's through likes, comments, reposts, listening, buying merch, you know, any kind of that support is seen and appreciated. And with that in mind, also, you know, the results of the Sports Podcast Awards were revealed on January 30th. And as you know, the show was a nominee for Best Basketball Podcast. And, you know, of course, I hate to say that the show may not have won, but it meant a lot to me that you voted. You know, to even be in the conversation, right? I said that from the jump. To even be in the conversation and be able to be voted was a blessing for me. And, you know, the biggest result that I'm focusing on is that hopefully, you know, we showed those industry professionals how legit Hip to the Games is, how legit this podcast is and will be, and that hopefully that kind of opportunity can kind of propel the show and you know, that the show finds and is valued by other folks like us who are hip to the games. That's my main thing that I'm hoping comes out of this. But either way, I did want to say thank you again, because the results were revealed. And, you know, we lost to some shows, you know, I'll be 100. We lost to some shows that, you know, they had the larger media outlets, and they had CBS and Fox and all these other production companies pushing them. So it's a great opportunity. But like I said ahead of time, there was some hefty competition, and I knew it was an uphill battle. But like I said, I appreciate every single one of you who took the time to vote and believe in what Hip to the Games is doing and what it's about. And there'll be a time and place down the line, I'm sure, as long as I keep at it, where Hip to the Games can get that kind of love. But I've said it from day one, that's not really what I do it for, and that's not necessarily the main goal of this, right? So it's always about genuinely appreciating basketball and hip hop. That's what it's always going to be, trying to change the game for good, change the way we talk about basketball, change the way we talk about hip hop in a positive way, in a way that's honestly unpopular to what we see a lot nowadays, just really trying to change the game for good. So as long as I'm continuing to do that, that's what's going to make me happy. That's going to be the real reward. So I just wanted to take the time to say thank you again. Now, as I usher in today's episode, if you are a returning listener, you already know how I do. But if you are new to the show, this episode is going to be organized by the format that pays homage to the classic hip hop song structure. All right, I got 3 verses for you today, which represents 3 topics for the show. Okay, the first verse always has to set the tone. The middle verse brings the climax or rising action. And then your last verse has to be the haymaker. It's got to be the best verse for last while bringing a resolution, okay? And since we always got to start off verse 1 with a bang, I had to start with those league staggering off-season moves out of the WNBA. But just before that, really quick, while we're anxious to see how Kendrick Lamar represents hip-hop on the Super Bowl stage, here's how you can take part in your own Super Bowl victory with H2DG's latest sponsor. Hip to the Games is a basketball show. But like many sports kids, even in the midst of my many hoop dreams growing up, I also had dreams of being like Randy Moss or LaDainian Tomlinson and playing in Super Bowls. And speaking of Super Bowls, the big game is almost here, and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last football game of the season with PrizePicks, the best place to win cash while watching the big game. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks is also giving away a free pick for the big game, where one of the starting quarterbacks will only need to throw at least 1 yard to win. 1 yard. If you're correct on at least one or more stat projections, you can win real cash. Check out the promos tab to tail any of our Super Sweat Millie winners big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Will Patrick Mahomes pass more than 1.5 touchdowns? Will Saquon Barkley rush for more than 112.5 yards? Will Jalen Hurts pass for more than 215.5 yards? Will Travis Kelce have more than 62.5 receiving yards? Will Xavier Worthy have more than 56.5 receiving yards? These are the type of picks I debate when playing PrizePicks. Remember, just download the app and use the code CLNS, as PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Remember, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Tipping off today's show with verse 1, we got to get into those WNBA moves, man. And I mean, listen, to start, we got to start with the haymaker, right? Jewel Lloyd, Kelsey Plum. We knew Jewel Lloyd put in her trade request, and while she was rumored to go to several teams, I myself was pushing for her to go to the Minnesota Lynx, actually, because when Nafisa Collier was struggling towards the end of that last finals game, when Courtney Williams for once couldn't buy a bucket, and the Liberty had Kayla McBride on lock after that, her hot first half, it was clear that they needed a Jewel Lloyd. They were a Jewel Lloyd away from hoisting that trophy. There were obviously things with the officiating, other factors going into it. The Lynx, like I said, they missed a lot of, they had some chances to win the game. Even with the officiating, they did have some chances to win the game, and they couldn't come through. So to me, they needed a Jewel Lloyd, right? They just needed somebody to open up the game for the aforementioned players and get a bucket. And Jewel is a part of a select group in this league that has that kind of value. Yet, with all that said, the Aces decided to trade their star guard, Kelsey Plum, to the Sparks so they could receive Jewel Lloyd from Seattle as the Storm got raw inside out post-presence Lee Yuru. I know we aren't encouraged to compare W players to NBA players, but when I watched Lee Yuru, I immediately saw LaMarcus Aldridge. So if you have NBA brain, she has some similarities to him. And then they also got the number 2 draft pick from the Sparks in return. So the Storm didn't do a bad job either. They're in great position for the draft, and they get a nice inside out post presence. So let's sit with this one for a bit, though. Okay, like I said, I do want to talk just briefly about other moves that happened, but I really wanted to sit with this Jewell Loyd and Kelsey Plum situation. Because first, I want to start with Kelsey, because I'm very excited for Kelsey Plum. This trade comes at such a good time in her career arc, in my opinion. I think it would have been similar had the Aces traded Jackie Young, right? I think the similar players who have great star potential, you kind of want to see what they would do if they had a team for themselves. So I think they were both in play for that. Like I said, we knew this about the Aces. They were very fortunate to have all-star pieces that were drafted to their organization. 3 number 1 picks with their core players, aside from veteran champion Chelsea Gray, right, who they acquired in 2021. But this is a fantastic opportunity for Kelsey because everybody knew the Sparks were a piece away from trending towards contenders again, right? Not getting quite there, but trending towards that direction. They got De'Erica Hamby, who had a career year last year. They're able to draft elite rim protector Cameron Brink, an absolute bucket getter Rickea Jackson, and have key role players like Lexi Brown, Azurá Stevens, Ari McDonald. And when you think about the development of Brink and Jackson especially, while maybe not right away, it can get real scary in Los Angeles. And the thing about adding Kelsey Plum to that group is that she hasn't had an opportunity like this since college. Because let it be known, in case you need a refresher, Kelsey Plum was once Caitlin Clark. Kelsey Plum, to this day, is one of the best college basketball players I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes. Her senior season, she averaged 32, 5, and 5 on darn near 50, 40, 90. She was the biggest sensation in college hoops at the time. She averaged 20 points every year leading up to that historic senior campaign where she nearly broke Pete Maravich's all-time, male or female, NCAA scoring record. So that's why when she starts her WNBA career, she's suddenly trending towards bust conversations, dare I say. She had a real hard time adjusting to the pro level, averaging single-digit points for the then San Antonio Stars, which before that they were the San Antonio Silver Stars. But and even then, those single-digit scoring numbers continued her next 2 seasons, even as they relocated to Las Vegas. She was hanging around, but she definitely wasn't that star that we saw in college. And on top of that 4th season, she suffers an Achilles injury and misses the entire 2020 season. So you got to think, she's really in a hole now. Thankfully, her hardships allowed her to find her faith again, which brought more peace on and off the floor. And then she came back in 2021 as a 6th woman, where she finally found her footing in the leagues, leading a 2nd unit. And this season allowed her to become a starter again, right? After that season, she's a starter again, having her first 20-point season and championship in 2022, and then similar all-star seasons ever since. So I say all that to say, Kelsey Plum has almost like a refreshed second chance to lead a team of her own again, right? With new wisdom, new experience, championship experience at that. She reunites with former teammate De'Erica Hamby and should coexist with Rickea Jackson as the 2 bucket getters very nicely. I'm definitely a fan of this side of the trade. Kelsey Plum is going to do a great job leading the Sparks. Like I said, it's really going to be awesome to see her with this new experience, new wisdom, kind of be in a similar situation she found herself in at Washington. So I think it's going to be dope for her. But, of course, there's the other side to this trade. And I'm still pondering the thought of Jewell Loyd with the Aces. Okay, not that it's bad, not that it's amazing, right? I've just been kind of pondering with it. Don't get me wrong. The Aces are still very scary. They lost some of the combo guard skills, I think, that Kelsey presented, which made her pairing with Chelsea Gray lethal. However, that's still a Chelsea Gray and Jewell Loyd backcourt. It should work very similarly. If not, it just simply means Chelsea Gray orchestrates that offense even more. And I think obviously the Aces are going to return to their offensive onslaught with all players healthy. Additionally, I think at times Jewell Loyd has shown some underrated ability to get after it on defense. All that is cool, right? But I think most of the critique with Jewell Loyd has been, okay, you're a bucket getter, but what else? What can you do when your shot isn't falling? She'll have an opportunity to answer that question with the Aces. She's generally been around 17 points for her career. Only recently has she reached that 20 points per game plateau. And in fact, like Kelsey Plum, is a two-time champion, with jewelry coming from her 2018 and 2020 runs with the Storm, establishing a dynamic duo with now Liberty star Breanna Stewart. So you trade a champion for a champion. It's a W, big W. And I feel like a lot of people saw her trade coming, but I have to admit, I thought it was a bit strange. It was kind of how I felt about Jimmy Butler at first. Like, okay, this is interesting, and again, it could just be me falling asleep in terms of WNBA news, right? What was going on behind the curtain. But my thing was, what are you after? Like, let's be real, because Jewell Loyd is leaving a Storm team that got her some great help in former college teammate Skylar Diggins, former MVP Nneka Ogwumike, and this was after a bad 2023 season for Seattle. So, you grow as a scorer, as an all-star caliber player, you kind of reach superstar level, but and that franchise gets you help, but now the minute you get help, you play one season, now you want to dip. I didn't know how to feel about that. So the minute you get help, you decide to go. But after reflecting on this trade, it tells me that Jewell Loyd simply wants to get back to what was really her role in Seattle when she had Stewie, I think. I think play through Stewie, right? Let me make the clutch buckets. I think now you can turn that into play through Asia Wilson. Let me hit the clutch buckets. But the thing is, Chelsea Gray has done that for this team, right? Jackie Young has great two-way ability. There are more weapons here than what you had in Seattle. So to me, Jewell Loyd's buckets should come more efficiently, and her game should mature in that regard, because again, as great as she's shown to be, her shot selection isn't always the best, right? That's the knock with Jewell Loyd's game. When she's missing, it shows. With the Aces though, she has an opportunity to contend for chips again, and I think more importantly, show how she can be more than a bucket getter. I think that's, if I'm Jewell Loyd, at least that's how I would approach this situation. Like, okay, I've established myself as an all-star. I'm a champion. I can get buckets, but let me come to an Aces team and fit with them, right? Let me not just show that I can score 20 and don't even show like, oh, I can replace Kelsey Plum. Just show a different Jewell Loyd, right? Show a Jewell Loyd that people think doesn't exist. That's what I see. That's what I'm excited for with this trade for Jewell Loyd. Like I said, the Aces, they're going to be scary. They're going to do their thing. They're going to be in championship conversations, but it'll be interesting to see how all this works. And hopefully I think that's the mindset Jewell Loyd carries going into this season. Now, like I said, I briefly do want to touch on some of the other moves that were made across the W this offseason, as that wasn't the big trade. that wasn't the only big trade that happened this past week, as longtime Connecticut Sun star Alyssa Thomas decided to move to the Phoenix Mercury, which I think at first was funny because her wife, right, DeWanna Bonner, that was her former team. That's who she started her career with. That's where she got a lot of her 6 Women of the Year awards, right? And you had to think that, oh, maybe there's a window here where DeWanna can reunite with her spouse, but also her kind of end her career with the team that drafted her, right? But she actually went and chose the up-and-coming Indiana Fever, right? So even off the bat, we got Alyssa Thomas going to the Mercury and DeWanna Bonner going to the Fever with Caitlin Clark, giving Caitlin Clark a bucket getter. So you have an inside presence in Aaliyah Boston, a perimeter threat in Caitlin Clark, and now you got a wing scorer in DeWanna Bonner. That's going to be crazy. But I think going back to Alyssa Thomas, I think it gives the Mercury a great leader, a great defender, a great facilitator, right? I mean, it's no wonder she's been in MVP discussions the last few seasons. Anytime you can get a player like that, it helps your team tremendously. She is a triple-double threat every time she steps on the floor. I've said it before, the Sun were always the team that came so close but just could never get over that hump. They could never finish the job. So it actually makes sense why Alyssa Thomas chose a change of scenery, chose a refresh. And I think for Phoenix, on the flip side, after a disappointing season with even with talent like Natasha Cloud, Diana Taurasi, Kalia Copper, Brittany Griner, getting Alyssa Thomas seemed like the key piece they really needed to make it all work. But of course, when something like that happens, you got to expect that team ain't going to stay the same. And lo and behold, everything changed the minute Alyssa Thomas, it was announced she was going to the Mercury, because Natasha Cloud is going to be a part of that trade, as she and Rebecca Allen, along with the 12th pick in the draft, got sent to the Connecticut Sun. And furthermore, Brittany Griner, right? She shocked the world after 11 seasons with the Mercury and a 2014 championship and plenty of other accolades. She decides to leave the Mercury and join the Atlanta Dream, a team that just barely made the playoffs last season. A sleeper team for sure, but a team that they pretty much got in the playoffs because other teams were losing. But still, though, the idea of Brittany Griner alongside star scorer Ryan Howard, all-star Alicia Gray, that sounds exciting. They certainly have their pieces there. I think for Brittany Griner, though, I believe that she wanted to leave because she was always the focal point in Phoenix. The Phoenix Mercury, their formula usually succeeded when they played through her offensively, and she was able to stay out of foul trouble on defense, right? But as she's getting older, mid-30s, I think she no longer wants that to be the case. Will she still look to score? Absolutely. But I think at this stage in her career, she's tired of having that pressure, especially while Diana Taurasi isn't her prime self either. While this decision I think shocked many people, I can see Brittany Griner's potential view behind her move as she joins a younger team looking to get over the hump and provide veteran leadership, be a great defensive anchor, all those things. But for the Mercury, it's good that they made other moves, right? They get Satu Sabali, right, and Kalani Brown from Dallas. Those are two really good pickups. Obviously, Kalani, I think, is going to have a great opportunity in her young career. With Brittany Griner being out of there. And obviously, Satu gets a fresh start. And for Phoenix, Phoenix has always been one of those teams where they've always found a way to get some kind of talent, right? So this is going to be good for her. And pairing with Kalia Copper, a competitor that she is, it's going to be nice. It's going to be nice. Like I said, Ka, Satu, Alyssa Thomas, that's a real nice big three that can play off each other. But tremendous versatility with those three. But it will be interesting to see how they surround those three and how the Sun will seek to enter a new, and on the flip side, right, the Connecticut Sun, how they're going to enter a rebuilding era after some years of successful basketball. So it'll be interesting to see what directions these franchises take. I mean, you got to think the Connecticut Sun probably got their eyes on Juju Watkins, maybe Paige Beckers if there's a lane for that, but there are other young guards in college right now doing their thing, young players that are going to be happy to lead a franchise like the Sun. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how the Sun do, but even then, right, other moves included Courtney Vandersloot. She's coming back to the Sky, right? Giving them a true point guard to bring some order to the offense, which was much needed for that team. It will be interesting to see the leap Indiana takes, like I said, with DeWanna Bonner, Natasha Howard, and Sophie Cunningham to what was already a playoff roster. Like, that is a hungry group right there. Like, I hope people are ready for the Indiana Fever because they coming. When you knew when they got Caitlin Clark that the supporting cast was gonna be on their way. And she certainly got a great one now. And I think it was cool to see Dallas get some help around Arike Ngubawale and Dejanay Carrington and Alyssa Smith, right? It'll be interesting to see what happens to Natasha Cloud and Tina Charles because, Tina Charles is going to the Connecticut Sun, returning to her college stomping grounds in Connecticut, right? But, T Cloud, she's such a competitor, man. Like, I don't want to see her on a rebuilding team. They're certainly contributing veterans on a rebuilding team. I just got to wonder if contenders will look to acquire them in the future, right? Because Tina did a pretty good job with the Atlanta Dream. Obviously, like I said, T Cloud is such a great competitor. Like, you would love to see her in a winning situation. So we'll see how long that lasts. We'll see how long, what those teams are going to be up to. But again, lots of great moves coming out of the W. It's going to make up for a real exciting year with all this movement. The WNBA offseason made sure to continue the soap opera of their own in dramatic fashion. But of course, what do you think of the moves that or maybe the teams or players involved. Be sure to share your thoughts with me down below if you're watching on YouTube, or at me on the socials at Hip to the Games or at Desmond Powell _, as I would love to hear those thoughts. Share those thoughts with me. I'd love to know what you think as well. Verse 1 is definitely off to a hot start with those WNBA topics, but there is plenty of more to come as we transition to verse 2, where I'm flipping back to the NBA and showing some love for some youngins who are doing their thing as of late. But first, if you like what you're hearing so far and want to know how you can show some love for Hip to the Games, here's how you can do that. As a fan of Hip to the Games, not only should you show your love for the podcast, but you gotta express your love for basketball and hip hop. With a wide variety of clothing and accessories, there is always a way to show how much the game of basketball and the game of rap means to you. Let everybody know what it means to be hip to the games by clicking the link in the episode's description to cop some merch and represent the H2DG lifestyle. Getting into our second verse here, I wanted to take some time to give some praise and highlight 3 rookies in particular who have found their footing in the recent month or so. All right. Obviously, this rookie class was seen as a draft class that was filled with role players. And so naturally, I think a lot of coaches have been hesitant to play even some of the most talented prospects that could help their teams right away. But I think they forgot that experience is the best teacher. And a great example of that hesitancy was how the Miami Heat did my man Kel'el, man. Listen, I get it. The Miami Heat done been to the finals twice in the 2020s. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But for many of us, when the Miami Heat drafted 7-foot shot-blocking lob threat Kel'el, we knew that the plan was to play him alongside Bam Adebayo and let Bam move to the 4, which to me was always his natural position. Don't get me wrong, Bam Adebayo did an excellent job as the Miami Heat center for all these years. His game grew a lot with that role. But when you look at the way he plays the game, even with how he's let off his dominance, he's let off a little bit, just a little bit. But you could just tell Bam needs a true center next to him. And I think they had that when they drafted Kel'el. But of course, with him not playing, we didn't really get to see that. But I think it allows Bam, that kind of role allows Bam to focus more as the vocal anchor on defense instead of having to guard a guy like Nikola Jokic one-on-one and make sure his teammates are rotating and communicating correctly, right? And what I really want to point out with this situation is that it is the why, right? Why it was necessary that Bam Adebayo had another big man with him. Because I think even offensively, right? He is specifically a facilitating big man. When you watch Bam Adebayo play, he likes bringing the ball up. He likes getting the ball in the T-Mac area and not just wanting to score, but being able to operate, maybe do some DHOs, maybe make some passes from the elbow to guys like Duncan Robinson coming off screens. You know what I'm saying? That's his makeup as an offensive player. And when I thought about this topic, it dawned on me, right? That most, not all, but most facilitating bigs play better when they have a partner in crime at the center spot, right? Excluding outliers like Nikola Jokic, Domantas Sabonis, Alperen Sengun, and even Joakim Noah when the Bulls didn't have D Rose, right? Those guys were true centers that can literally be a centerpiece of an offense. But there are various examples of what I'm referring to, ranging in a variety of skill sets. For example, I want to shout out Draymond Green and Andrew Bogut. Sure, while Draymond found himself playing the 5 a lot in Golden State, don't forget that Andrew Bogut was down there as a fellow defensive anchor, fantastic screen setter, and lob threat oftentimes. And remember, it was Draymond Green who said, yo, Andrew Bogut taught me how to be a defensive anchor. Like, he taught me how to be the last line, truly be the last line of a defense and make sure everybody's on the same page. So imagine, right, when they were winning championships in their heyday, that first season, it was Bogut and Draymond, right? So I think you saw the benefit of that, and even when Bogut was gone, we saw the Warriors use similar dynamics with Zaza Pachulia and JaVale McGee. Obviously, JaVale was more of a defensive anchor and a lob threat, while Zaza was more so the screen setter, and he got plenty of open face-up opportunities and inside looks playing with Draymond and playing in that Warrior system. They made it work. Another example would be Boris Diaw and Tim Duncan. Again, one of the most cheat code dynamics you can use as a basketball team is to have a post-scoring big or lob threat big opposite of a facilitating power forward, especially one like Boris Diaw, who had guard skills, who could dribble, who could move, right? He was mobile. The power forward can bring the ball up, operate up top, draw double teams in the post, and is a great short roll option because they are liable to make a shot from the paint, yet oftentimes they let the defense collapse and dish it to their center or even other players that are in that dunker spot, right? And these are many skills that we've seen Bam Adebayo display. And my last example is a Lakers one with a couple options, Pau Gasol and Andrew Bynum, or you could say Lamar Odom and Pau Gasol. So think about that. The Lakers were blessed with not one, but two options of this. And we saw how it led to championships for that franchise, right, in 2009 and 2010. So yes, the Lakers, they used the triangle offense. That certainly helps a lot. It emphasized their versatility. But still, Pau Gasol's skill set at 7 feet was ahead of its time. Being an inside-out threat who could pass in a variety of ways, right? And obviously Lamar Odom being a guy who could do the same and handle the ball like a guard. All of the examples I listed were a part of championship teams. And to me, Kel'el is going to help Bam in that way. Because when I watch Bam, even in the 2023 finals, while he did a fantastic job in that series, I mean, I thought Bam Adebayo, that was some of the most impressive basketball I've seen him play. He handled it really well. You could just see, though, Bam Adebayo is not necessarily conditioned to be the focal point of an offense for an 82-game season. Every now and then it will be great, but he's a lot more Al Horford than he is Dwight Howard, so to speak. And again, before people always get thrown off when I say names and things of that nature, and I don't, like I say, I don't do this for hot takes. When I say these things, there's a thought in mind when I say that, right? Hold your horses, okay? Bam Adebayo is a lot more Al Horford than he is Dwight Howard. For example, throwing it to Bam in the post repeatedly is not going to unleash the full beauty of his game, right? Al Horford was the same way. He needed face-up opportunities. There were even seasons where he was tremendous as a post playmaker. Like, there's more to his game than that. And again, that's not a diss towards Dwight Howard, right? It's just two totally different players, right? Allowing Bam Adebayo to be a team player, that's what empowers him. That's what unleashes the beauty of his game, right? Because that's what he's always been. So I say all this to say, Kel'el finally getting minutes makes Miami's future brighter. He's already got this prime DeAndre Jordan lob presence, right? Where as long as they throw it at the hoop, he's going to get it. The athleticism translates defensively as a rim protector. We've seen that. Again, that's something Bam Adebayo's already amazing at. So just having two guys down there is, again, a lot like what Cleveland, in a grand scheme, is a lot like what you see in Cleveland with Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. So, having those two down there is going to make teams settle for jumpers. And with this new NBA, Kel'el is a guy that can comfortably shoot the three, right? So, again, he's not even one-dimensional in that regard. It extends the Miami Heat's options knowing that he can make threes. You can't leave him in the dunker spot because it's an easy 2 points. And if you just ignore him and pick and pops and think he's not going to shoot it, well, that's where you're wrong, because you can't leave him behind the arc. He's capable of knocking it down. He's going to make teams have to pick their poison, and that's why he's going to be so helpful to Miami's offense as they transition into this new phase with Tyler Hero running the point, Bam doing some facilitating, and let Kel'el control that paint and take some pressure off Bam on both sides of the floor. And I think Kel'el probably would be the Rookie of the Year favorite if he was playing sooner, right? But as always, it's better late than never. So, definitely a shout out to Kel'el. He's getting those minutes and he's showing why the Miami Heat selected him in the draft. So, and I love that it's paying off the way that we all envisioned it would. Now, next up is T-Wolves guard Rob Dillingham. Rob with the shifts. All right. Now, if you remember, he was actually my preseason prediction for Rookie of the Year. I thought with him being on a team like Minnesota, having that kind of shot creation ability, that directly was going to translate to this modern style of NBA basketball that we see. He was going to have the most opportunity to show his game. But of course, that didn't really pan out. Most of the year, if he was playing in the NBA, he was getting garbage minutes. And if not that, he was riding the bench or hooping in the G League. And now, he did have an ankle injury to start the year, so that definitely had a factor. That's why his minutes were so inconsistent. But see, that's what frustrated me And what frustrates me about these coaches, what they're doing to these rookies, especially this draft class. Like, the NBA is deeper than ever before. I've said that. It makes sense. I understand it's hard to find rookies playing time. But there should be no reason why Rob Dillingham and even a guy like Reed Sheppard should find themselves in the G League. Reed Sheppard got drafted top 3, could have been Summer League MVP, and still found himself in the G League. I get it. The Rockets are incredible right now. There's no space for him, really. But see, this is what happens when you are already a good team and you simply just get the best available player in the draft. You probably didn't need him, but you got him because he was best available. And now you end up not having room for him. That's what frustrates me about this NBA. So you're just going to hold them hostage until you need them 5 years from now, right? That's the NBA we're watching now. Or you'll trade them away. That's the NBA that we're in right now. But, thankfully, Rob Dillingham has been able to find some consistent, meaningful minutes in this last month or so, and is showing why he's one of the best prospects in his class. I think the thing with Rob is that eventually he'll just have to figure out how he can help manage a game and not just get his, for lack of a better term, as he gave the Timberwolves a great boost on MLK Day, actually, with 15 points on 6 of 8 shooting. Even though it was a loss, I thought he gave them a great spark. And then he even had 10, 5, and 4 in a blowout win versus the Nuggets, though he did have 6 turnovers that game. So again, I think it's just coming with experience. It's always, even back in the day, it was always hard for guards to learn how to get theirs and manage a game, right? There are guys like Rob Dillingham who are great scorers, so they don't necessarily know how to manage a game as a point guard, right? A true point guard. Floor general type of player. So that's something that, again, only comes with experience and learning the game and learning how to fit with NBA talent, right? And I notice a lot of people nowadays are starting to say turnovers don't matter. I mentioned his 6 turnovers. There's some, and maybe it's the youngins, I don't really know, but I've seen a lot of chatter that turnovers don't matter, to which I presume is because the game is so fast, turnovers are inevitable. But please don't listen to that nonsense. It is a lead guard's responsibility to protect the pill. That's basketball 101. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you is. It is your responsibility to protect the pill. Your offense will always be much better off if you're protecting the pill. That's Hoops 101. But outside of more experience and more time to learn the lessons every guard has to learn, Rob's handle and his change of pace has translated to the NBA level in a way that makes it look like he's been here before. I mean, his change of direction is already veteran-esque. So just imagine how much of a problem he'll be in the future, no matter what his role is. And his three-point shot isn't bad either, as that really caught me off guard, because some shot creators can get into the league and they fall into the trap of making the game hard on themselves, and they struggle with consistency. But even in these small flashes, Rob has shown to have great pace and nice consistency shooting the basketball. So I'm glad he got healthy and finally got his opportunity to perform. So like I said, the NBA coaches, they was tripping a little bit, but it's good to see these guys turning a corner and doing their thing. Because again, that's the NBA that I know. If you was a rookie, you was getting a chance. Like, if you was a top draft pick, you getting a chance. You getting thrown in the fire. And I think, again, even my Chicago Bulls, I think we're finally helping Montes Buzelis do the same thing. He was in interviews saying, I can't get experience if I'm not playing against the best. That's exactly what the NBA is. Everybody's like, oh, these rookies, man, they gotta sit and watch for a little bit. No, throw them in the fire. That's what this game is. A lot of these guys were highly touted prospects. Put them in the game and let them rock. Let them make mistakes. Let them learn. Let them blossom. Give them highlights so they can experience the highs and lows. That's what that first season is for. You don't babysit them and then make them learn everything their second season. Let them grow. Let them blossom. Let them take their L's and their W's all the same and learn to be the players that they want to be. That's what this rookie season is really for, deep down. So shout out Rob Dillingham. Shout out Kel'el. And lastly, I wanted to shout out a sleeper guy, Jazz guard Isaiah Collier. I know most of us ain't watching the Jazz like that, but when he got drafted, I remember telling Devon, I think he's going to be nice. I just have a feeling like he looks ready for his shot. NBA body, he looks like a hungry dude. And while getting some good minutes, most of the year, this dude has put together a recent stretch of games that shows that he could be what I'm sure the Jazz hope is a Kyle Lowry-esque player. That's who I see when I look at Isaiah Collier. I've seen like a John Wall comparison out there before too, but to me, and I see it in terms of like the open court showmanship, right? Like he yearns to make the right pass, you can just tell. But I think body wise and just the way he can really find his footing in this league, I feel like if he took after Kyle Lowry, that would be great for him. I think he's shown plenty of flashes of his playmaking skills, but he's had a couple games where, he supplemented that playmaking with buckets of his own, including a 23-7-7 performance in a win versus Brooklyn, and then a 20-point, 11-assist line despite a loss versus the Pelicans. And he made a lot of he made a lot of plays in that Pelicans game, man. That was really impressive, I thought. There were some, he was dropping dimes, he was getting to the bucket. Like, he looks very patient. He's not a scorer by nature, but like you can't really tell, so I think his efficiency stat wise, obviously that's going to need some work, but at 6'3", 210, he's a strong guard. I love the way he reads pick and roll situations and gets straight to it. Like he waits to start his dribble. He'll like actually read the defense and then make a decision. He doesn't waste movements. He's not dribbling with no motive, right? He attacks the rim strong. He can make a pass to a guy like Walker Kessler or hit Keontae George for three. Like, he knows what he's doing. While still a very raw talent, he looks like a guy that's hungry to lead a team. That's what I see when I watch him play, and he wants to make the right play every trip down. Former Bulls guard BJ Armstrong, I saw him on like the Hoop Genius podcast that he does, and he made a great point in saying that he felt like the hardest thing for point guards to do in the NBA is figure out when to pass and when to score. And he felt like Isaiah Collier has already figured that out. Hence the stats I just dropped. I thought the same thing. Like, it's really dope to see a guy like him putting it together. And again, having that opportunity in Utah to do that. He can be a real savvy guard in this league if all goes well development-wise. I really like what I'm seeing from him. I'm curious to see if at some point Utah will have to choose between him or Keontae George, because I thought Keontae George was poised to be their guard of the future. But if Isaiah Collier can develop into, like I said, a Kyle Lowry kind of point guard, it'll be interesting to see what they do with that makeup. But for right now, that situation looks like the perfect environment for him to get his reps and his experience in. So shout out Isaiah Collier. Really, like I said, really slept on rookie this season. So there you have it. Those are 3 NBA rooks who have seemed to finally find some rhythm and show some potential in the league right now. But who else is hooping that people or even coaches seem to be sleeping on? Talk to me. Let me find out who else we got to keep our eyes on moving forward. Drop them youngins' names in the comments or on the socials. All right, let me know. But in the meantime, I got one more verse left as I continue with more NBA thoughts. This time showing love to teams as opposed to players. Maybe saying I told you so in the process. All right, but in the meantime, with the NBA action gradually reaching its post-All-Star climax, here's how you can make sure you don't miss a single second of the home stretch. If you're hip to the games, that means you yearn for nonstop NBA action. And thankfully, NBA League Pass serves as your ticket to the ultimate basketball experience. Enjoy live games, on-demand replays, and exclusive behind-the-scenes content across a variety of devices just at the tap of a finger. With NBA League Pass, you'll get more games, and that's regular season and playoffs, more features, including multi-view angles, in-depth stats, and behind-the-scenes stories, and more access, of course. Catch your favorite teams and players anytime, anywhere. League passes for fans like us who live the game. Sign up now at NBA.com/LP19MG. That's NBA.com/LP19MG. HUDG is working in affiliation with NBA League Pass and will be compensated for your patronage by utilizing the link provided. All right, for verse 3 of today's show, I want to talk about 2 teams who have found some surprising success to most fans, but I can't say I found it to be surprising. And those 2 teams are the Detroit Pistons and the Los Angeles Clippers. Let's start with Detroit. So technically, I didn't have Detroit on my radar much going into the season because it was Detroit. They just fired Monty Williams and hired JB Bickerstaff, so I presumed that an adjustment period would be necessary for them. And thus, they would be a bottom-tier team in the East. However, if you remember prior to last season, though, I had Detroit as part of my play-in sleepers alongside the Orlando Magic and I think the Indiana Pacers, and there was another team in there, maybe even Brooklyn. I don't remember. But of course, the Magic and the Pacers, we saw how they far exceeded expectations, but the Pistons certainly didn't live up to what I said. But my reasoning at the time was due to the fact that if they could find a way to surround Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey with shooters, they could be scary. But because they had some decent depth, right? They just needed the right guys around Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, guys that are going to slash the lane, look for shooters, look to score themselves, where you could do a lot with that dynamic. But it turns out my prediction was a year too soon. Because this year, man, Cade has truly leaped into a star player. And before his injury, Jaden Ivey showed that he could actually coexist with Cade, and that was something I didn't think he was going to be able to do. And so they really made it look good. And then, they get Malik Beasley. They get Tim Hardaway Jr. in the offseason, right? Shooters. That's what they needed. Beasley, he's having the second best season of his career thus far, bringing the 40% from three-point accuracy that this team needed, right? With Tim Hardaway having a little bit of a resurgence after a bitter end to his Dallas tenure at 37 from deep. And additionally, they brought back Tobias Harris, who once played for the Pistons in the past. And, he's given them a solid mid-post option, but obviously is somebody who doesn't mind knocking down threes. But, what I really want to stress is this, though. This is the most important thing I feel like I'm going to say. Asur Thompson is healthy, and the draft pick, Ron Holland, these guys bring defensive energy. These two guys in particular, again, alongside guys like Jalen Duren, right? Isaiah Stewart, even Simone Fontecchio, a feisty wing who can stretch the floor, right? Who's not afraid to make plays. All of these are guys who you could consider energy guys. And for me, they make it very clear that they're playing that Detroit basketball. Like, that's what those guys are for. All of this, while not a perfect team, is why the Pistons find themselves flirting with that 6th seed in the East. This point will come up again when talking about the Clippers, but that's the thing about this NBA. I think we've gotten so used to guys having a handle, having a bag, having a three-point shot, that we forget that energy guys are still very much valuable in this league. All right, especially with Ron Holland, right? From what I've heard, this is another rookie who people had questions about. They didn't necessarily see him as a guy with a skill set, and even finding his spot with the Pistons, people merely label him as an energy player, as if it's like we'll see how he does. But like, these guys are scrappy, man. They make the hustle plays. They'll look an opposing team's star scorer right in the eyes. They don't care about scoring 120 points as a team. They want to make sure your favorite team doesn't score 110. I've been trying to watch a lot more Pistons games recently, and when I have, I'm genuinely happy. Like, this team is exciting, and I think it's because they play my kind of basketball. Like, they scrap, they defend. Not everything is pretty, right? Some of that stuff is ugly, and I like it. Cade, he's the loudest guy on the floor at times. You can hear him barking at his teammates in motivation, right? You can hear him getting hyped when he's dunking on the Rockets. You know what I mean? Like, it's amazing to watch. He's a great facilitator, obviously. Jalen Duren, right? This is an old school, strong inside presence. Isaiah Stewart is the irritant who can make a three every now and then. When he's not getting suspended, I'm gonna need homie to stay on the floor and choose some peace for once. But he can do his thing out there. Asar and Ron, they get in transition very well. Tobias, Simone, Malik, Tim Hardaway, they knock down those momentum swinging shots. Like, they win playing their own style of basketball, and I've really enjoyed it. I know on my YouTube channel I was vocal about, if you want to contend, you got to be like the Celtics, right? You got to have guys that do everything. Like, you can't just necessarily be an energy guy. You got to be able to dribble, pass, and shoot as well. And that's very true, right? There's levels to being a playoff team and being a championship team. But, like, at the same time, having energy guys, you can get wins that way. And like I said, they're playing Detroit basketball. And I feel like that's why people have enjoyed the Pistons this year, because they got back to a modern version of what that franchise was always known to do. They've really fostered a team that is going to be good for a long time, I think, just as long as they keep this identity, right? Surround Cade with shooting and play that scrappy Pistons basketball like fans saw in the 80s, early 90s, and mid 2000s. right? What a tremendous bounce back from last season too. With all those losses, I'm genuinely happy for all those guys. They got that fire in their belly, that fire in their eyes again, and like they know that like they got a great chance to make some noise a little bit this year. And they kept their heads down and they got better. That's what it's all about, man. Credit to the players in the front office, because most guys would fold. Most guys would want to get traded. Most guys would dip in the offseason, and it's understandable, but those guys kept their heads down. And they stuck with the process, and now they're reaping a great harvest. They're reaping a great harvest. And even as a Bulls fan, you can consider me a fan of this team. In the Central Division, you can consider me a fan. I love what Detroit is doing. And then up next, we got the LA Clippers. Okay, again, a lot of people are shocked by their success, and even recently, I'm seeing more and more articles pop up in their favor, promoting their chances of being a sleeper contender this year, even being a potential playoff threat to OKC. But again, your boy saw this coming. I promise you I did. In fact, if you're watching on YouTube right now, you can pause to read. As you'll see, I've included text messages with my guy Johnny. All right, he's been on the show before, who has been a Clipper fan since the pre-Lob City days, where you'll see me on separate occasions stemming from July to December trying to console and convince my brother that his team was in good shape. And everything I said then is happening, right? Now, granted, I didn't foresee Norman Powell and having an all-star campaign, but I did envision a team that was going to fight night in and night out, and more importantly, know their roles. While losing guys like Paul George, Russell Westbrook, and getting guys like Derrick Jones, Chris Dunn, that looked bad on paper. If you're looking at names, we are seeing the clarity of the skills that roster can provide come to life, despite not signing well-known names like they have the last 5 seasons. James Harden has had full control of the point guard spot. Norman Powell is the go-to scorer. Zubac continues to grow and once again is a great rebounder, great low post option, great interior defender. Derrick Jones is a great cutter, transition threat, lob threat, great on backdoor cuts. He can even knock down threes when needed, doing kind of extending what he did in Dallas last season. Chris Dunn, he's making the hustle plays. He's always been a tenacious defender, even with his up and down journey over the course of his career. He's getting in guys' grill. He's getting steals. They got back Nick Batum, who has always been reliable. Even at 88 years old, he is reliable. He can block shots, he can contest shots, hit corner threes. That's what Nick Batum has done that since the Blazers. He's done that his whole career, really. And even Amir Coffey, right? This is a guy that's been able to do more of what we saw the last few seasons: knock down threes, make a hustle play, make a good cut. Another reliable role player. And again, signing those energy guys, signing those effort guys has earned them one of the best defenses in the league. Something that they didn't even do when they had Pat Beverly, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard. Guys know their roles. That is the difference. Derrick Jones knows that he can do the same thing he did in Dallas. Chris Dunn knows he can focus on guarding 94 feet and picking pockets. Amir Coffey knows when he'll get a shot. Norman Powell knows that he's going to get 17 shots every night. James Harden knows who is going to cut where, when, and how, and the options he has with different lineups on the floor. It's not all this confusion that the Clippers had before, where Kawhi needed post touches, but so does PG. But because Kawhi is the better player, we'll give the post touches to Kawhi, and PG, you got to find another way to get hot. But the way PG likes to get hot is by dribbling and getting in his rhythm, feeling the basketball so he can get into his pull-up. But you know who also does that? James Harden. Conflict there. How are we going to get these guys in rhythm, right? And if we get these guys the ball, well, dang, Russ isn't really going to have as much control as he'd like, right? Because he likes getting rebounds, getting in transition, getting his guys involved through assists and running teams out the gym. That's going to be a little hard when James Harden gets the rebound, or if Paul George gets the rebound and decides to take it. It was so much confusion, right? And even then for Norman, even a guy like Norman Powell, right? He literally had to change his approach every night because on Monday, everybody's healthy, but Tuesday, only PG is out there. But then Thursday, everybody's resting. So he's got to take all the shots. Like, his role changed darn near by the day. So I say all that to say the Clippers successfully went against the grain, because if you're paying attention, and I've said this before, no longer is the star power winning games. The star power by itself is not winning games. Philly is going to find that out real soon if they haven't already. It's no surprise that the Clippers look better than they have the last couple of seasons after simply constructing a roster with a healthy balance of hungry role players as opposed to hopeful superstars. That is the reason for their success this year. The hungry, high-energy guys aren't always going to play well. They're not always going to shoot well. But the team will always have a chance at winning, a chance at a comeback win, a playoff spot, simply because those guys are always going to give their best effort, even if it's ugly. I might be 0 of 5 from 3, but I am not letting up on defense. We always got a shot, right? I might have not touched the ball the whole quarter, but I'm engaged because I'm playing my role. We going to always have a shot. Those energy guys give you that chance. You know, we've heard it for years. Never underestimate the heart of a champion. And that selflessness is why Kawhi's transition now has been so seamless. That roster was constructed with the final puzzle piece being the health of Kawhi Leonard. That roster, you know, every piece has been put in place. We good. We got it figured out. Once Kawhi gets healthy, gets more confident in his shot, his movements, his rhythm, his body, we gonna be scary. And we've heard Clippers players say that. Like, look, when Kawhi get back, it's gonna be trouble. Because Kawhi coming back doesn't mean Norm takes a back seat. Kawhi coming back doesn't mean Derrick Jones has to change what he's doing. Kawhi coming back doesn't mean Zubac still can't do his thing. Kawhi can adjust to us as opposed to us adjusting to Kawhi. And this egoless, high-energy basketball we've seen them play is exactly what has worked for not only the Clippers, but the Detroit Pistons and even higher-tier teams, right, like OKC and Houston. And I'll be the first to say, you need your stars come playoff time. Them role players ain't going to hit the necessary off-dribble buckets in the fourth quarter when that game slows down. But they darn sure are going to do everything else to put the team in a position to succeed. So it's no surprise that we're seeing success understanding the way the Pistons and the Clippers constructed their teams. In fact, more teams should approach it that way. You know, shout out to those energy guys, man, and the guys in the front office that know what type of teams truly win games, because that's what this NBA is, man. Get you some energy guys that's going to play with heart so you always have a chance at winning games. So there's some well-deserved praise for some emerging teams at this point of the season, but while they found regular season success, what does it say about their playoff chances? Hit me up on the socials, comment on YouTube, you know the drill. Tag me with your thoughts. Let me know so I can see what you're thinking as well and what your answer is to that question. And with that third verse, we have made it to the end of another Hip to the Games episode. From league-altering WNBA moves, rookies finding their way, and teams that are showing how to build a winning roster, this episode was jam-packed with stuff, but as always, these were just my thoughts, and I know I didn't cover everything, so I want to hear from you, okay? You can tweet the show at Hip to the Games or tag me directly on Twitter and Instagram at DesmondPowell_, and share your thoughts on any of the topics discussed today, as I would love to hear or read your thoughts. And I simply want to say thank you for listening to another episode of H2DG, all for the love of the best combo there is. You know that's always what this platform is about. Anytime you see this mug on camera, that's what we doing. And of course, here's a huge shout out to you for being a part of it all and being hip to the games. Peace out and God bless. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Hip to the Games. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit up the socials at DesmondPowell_ and at Hip to the Games on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok so you don't miss out on the fun. And please follow or subscribe to the show and leave a review on the podcast platform you're on right now, as your support is greatly appreciated.